Hello again and welcome back to the show. I am, of course, Jack,
And I'm Josh.
and we are back with another episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Hope You Hated podcast, where we chat about shows and movies and all things movie related.
Uh-huh.
That's what we do. This week, we have an exciting episode. I say that every week. I'd like to think that it's exciting. We're going to chat about stuff that's out, stuff that just came out, and stuff we're excited about. But more importantly, I'm going to ask you some questions, just like I did last week, put you on the spot, have you answer some snap, first thing that comes to your mind kind of things. And I tried my very hardest to not think of answers myself so that I could also answer the questions.
I trust you fully.
Well, I maybe not, because like as I'm typing them out, I'm like,
Yeah.
But I tried not to. But anyways, before we even get into that, of course, we have to thank our sponsor, Jury of Wolves, for all of your urban apparel needs. Wearing the hat, wearing the shirt, we're out here representing. Juryofwolves.com. Use Hope You Hate It for 10% off your order. Thanks again to them. Anyways, let's talk about the things that came out over the past couple weeks.
Hit me with it.
You had this past week you had She-Hulk release. Mark Ruffalo and I can't remember her name that's playing She-Hulk, but the episodes are really short, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it.
I enjoyed it. I mean, I like really long things. Like, I don't care. Maybe sit down and watch something 8 hours. Like, if it's good, like, I don't want it to ever end.
Yeah.
So little short episodes of stuff, like, I'll take it because it's something. But
sure.
I mean, it did feel a little bit rushed. But at the same time, tis what it is.
How do you feel about having an after credit scene after every episode? Do you like that?
Yes and no, because yes, in the fact that generally after credit stuff, it doesn't play along with right after, the episode. It's generally something that's a little bit weirder that they would have to set up different if they were adding it into the actual episode. So it is cool because you get a little piece that they're like, we want to put this in the episode, but we don't know how. It doesn't fit anywhere, so we have to do it after credits. The only problem is the credits for that show. It was really annoying to kind of watch and listen to. It wasn't like a really fun one. It wasn't my type of music and song, so I was like, even the people I was with watching it were like, do we have to listen to this whole song? I'm like, yes, because there's an after credit scene. Like, okay, we can mute it, but it's like, so that's my yes and no answer on that.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. I'm kind of with you. I think that the after credits scenes have become kind of like expected, and it almost ruins it, because it used to be like are they gonna have an after credit scene, and now it's just like you have to have one. It's like almost part of the movie, right? Also, Day Shift came out. Snoop Dogg, Jamie Foxx. You said you watched it. It's got your boy Dave Franco. Further sealing the deal that he should play you.
I fell completely back in love with him. He's so fantastic. Peter Stormare as the pawn shop dude. He's fantastic. My boy Kevin from Shameless was in it, and an incredible fight scene. So I enjoyed it. It was wild. I liked the idea behind like the different types, some of the throwbacks that they did to it, the different weapons and those things. That was very fun.
Beast came out with Idris Elba, which I haven't seen yet, but I'm excited to watch. And House of the Dragon on Sunday, which we're going to talk about in just a second. We're going to kind of circle back to that. But also this coming week, Samaritan, the Sylvester Stallone movie that I told you about, where he's
I've been seeing the trailer for that one now.
Having just the other day, the two of us watched Rambo. I'm even more excited. Sylvester Stallone, there's just something so good about just these classic movies. I watched Predator the other day, the first one, after seeing
Hmm.
Prey a couple weeks ago and just absolutely loving that. I was like, I have to go back and watch Predator, the first one.
Yeah.
And it's just so good. It's so classic. They just don't make movies like that anymore. And I know
Hmm.
that's like a cliche thing to say, but when you go back and like watch these classics, like we were talking about Rambo, the Terminator, the Commando, the Predator,
Yeah.
all of these like classic 80s, early 90s action movies with these superstars of that genre, there's just something, and maybe it's just full on nostalgia, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe it's just because that's where we grew up and that's what we like remember watching,
Yeah, because
as
it's
a
weird.
kid.
Like, I'll see a
But
newer action movie and be like, "This is ridiculous. It has no plot. This is dumb. That's dumb," and I won't like it.
mhm.
But it's if you go back and I could apply the same things to like some of those older movies where it's like, "This
Sure,
is
this is,
ridiculous. This
makes no
should never
sense. Yeah,
happen."
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's over the top. But I love the old ones and some of the new ones. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I like things like Day Shift. It was
Yeah.
wild. It was all over the place. It was ridiculous, but I enjoy it.
But it
So
feels
maybe I'm
different
just
though, right?
biased with certain people.
It feels different watching a movie like Day Shift
Hmm.
now and it being an action movie or whatever versus like watching those. And I don't know if it's just like the, again, CGI, modern cameras, modern soundtrack, just the way that they're able to blend everything together. But
Hmm.
it doesn't really feel the same. I mean,
Yeah.
but it is, like you said, just as ridiculous. I think about one of the most ridiculous scenes in any of, I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger had a lot of ridiculous scenes, but in the movie Commando,
Yeah.
where whenever he gets captured, right, and he has like a certain amount of time to go kill the president, whatever, and he gets on a little plane with the guy that's holding him hostage, like the one bodyguard, and he
Hmm.
kills the guy in the plane seat, right? The plane
Yeah.
is taxiing on the runway, okay? He kills him by just like elbowing him in the head, and then he puts the little hat on him in the coat, and he like leans him up against the window, and he gets up, and the stewardess is like, "Sir, you have to remain in your seat," and he's like, "I'm so sick," and then
Yeah.
and then he goes, "Oh, by the way, don't bother my friend. He's dead tired." I'm
He's
like,
dead tired.
okay, yeah. So then he goes and gets in the bathroom for just a split second, long enough for them to forget that he's in there, keeping in mind that the plane is still taxiing. Okay.
Hmm.
He then climbs down somehow into the underbelly of the plane, into the landing gear, climbs out of the plane onto the landing gear while it's taking off, and then somehow manages to wait until it clears the runway
Gets
and
over
then
the
let's
swamp.
let's go over the swamp and
Yeah.
lands in the swamp, and then 2 seconds later he's just on foot coming out of the swamp, running over to the edge
Hmm.
of the airport. Like that entire sequence, if you put that in a movie today, I mean, everybody's
Yeah.
up in arms. Everybody's up in arms. They're like, "What the? There's no
Yeah.
way that is not going to happen. It's so unrealistic."
I know. I know. I don't get it. Our brains just uh, have some weird, like you said, nostalgia trigger or whatever
It
that
must
like
be.
at that point when we watched it for the first time we were young enough that it didn't
It was just awesome.
it didn't hit us as like, oh,
Yeah,
that can never happen. And now that we're older, we look back on it as like, yeah, it was fun. I liked it. But yeah, when they do it now, it's just your brain is immediately like, that doesn't make sense.
yeah.
Like,
Um, yeah. Other news, Top Gun was
mhm,
released on digital
digital
and to buy
download.
today, which is pretty cool. It's finally out for the rest of the masses to see. It's now number 6 highest grossing movie of all time,
Yeah. I
as
haven't heard a single person say a
Avengers
bad thing about it.
Infinity War, which is incredible
Mhm.
for a just like, I mean, I used to say, this is a long time ago, that like the original Top Gun was my favorite movie. And while it
Mhm.
isn't a fantastic movie, I just like to say that because like it was just a cool movie to have as your
Yeah.
favorite, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just cool. It's Maverick. It's the thumbs up. It's just a cool movie. But it wasn't, by any means the best movie of all time.
Yeah.
So thinking of it in that way, I think that one of the biggest appeals to it came down to not only how much it was advertised and hyped up, but
Mhm.
the sheer amount of like shooting that they did for these real stunts that they pulled
Mm-hmm.
off, and how much training these people had to do to really get this realistic feeling. I mean, Tom Cruise is such a maniac when it comes to
Yeah.
his roles. I watched a video today of the behind the scenes of him shooting the Halo jump in Mission Impossible,
Mm-hmm.
the one with him and Henry Cavill where they jump out of the
Yeah.
C-35 or whatever plane, the big plane it was, and that the video is incredible because he's talking about how much preparation that they had,
Mm.
and because of the camera lens that they were using, he had to jump out and trail the cameraman that like was backing out of this plane, and he
Mm-hmm.
had to catch up to him to maintain a 3 foot distance for like 10 to 15 seconds to get the shot.
Jeez.
And
Yeah.
it couldn't be 2.5 feet, it couldn't be 3.5 feet, it had to be exactly 3 feet in order to get the depth of field and the focus rate in this camera, right? And
That's wild.
they could only do one run a day
Yeah.
because by the time the plane gets up and it's dusk and
Mm-hmm.
they're shooting it, so like they would get up, and if anybody stumbles, if anybody messes up, or you miss the
Whew.
timing or the space, you're just, it's the whole day, like that shoot is blown.
Yeah.
And stuff like that is insane to just
Yeah.
get a 10-second clip in a movie, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, when
Well,
you actually go and watch that scene,
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really cool. And he just jumps out of the plane, and you just think, you're just like, oh, this is really awesome. You've seen him jump out of a plane. But like, that's an
Mm-hmm.
actual cameraman that's free falling in front of him with a camera on his head,
Yeah.
like that's filming him. It's absolutely insane. So I think that has a lot to do with why Top Gun got a lot of hype around it, because just people just know how crazy some of these things that he is willing to do,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. For
Also
sure.
today, the new trailer for the Lord of the Rings Prime series was released. I don't know if you
Yeah.
watched that.
I watched the old one, I think, yesterday, and I have not watched the new one yet.
So, ton of reveal as far as
Mm.
like characters and landscape and setting, and I mean throwback. I don't think I realized that one of the main characters was going to be Galadriel.
Yeah.
I don't think I either. They didn't say that, or I
They
didn't
did in the
read.
first well,
Okay.
in the trailer. So like I said, I watched one yesterday because I was talking with my brother about it, and he was like, "I haven't even heard of this before." And I was like, "All
Really?
right, well, sit down, pay attention. We're gonna watch the trailer real quick." And I had
Mhm.
no idea they were gonna release a new one today. So
Yeah.
we watched the old one yesterday. He was like, "Oh, that looks cool."
Yeah.
So but yes, I remember, her being pretty prominent in that original trailer.
Yeah. Which is, yeah, I don't know how I just like didn't put two and two together. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but very interesting because she's like in the movies. I mean, she's very powerful, but very like reserved, very like
Yeah.
kind of not passive, I guess, but you see her as more of a like a wispy fairy, and then like even back
Hmm.
into the Hobbit 3, she was like a bigger part, I guess, and maybe had a little bit
Hmm.
more spunk, but she's like a full-on warrior, it looks like,
Yeah.
fighting sword and all kinds of stuff. Anyways, that is super exciting. I'm very excited for that.
Oh yeah.
uh I gotta put out maybe a hot take.
Hmm.
um you didn't watch Sandman, did you?
No, I have not yet.
Okay, so it is getting all kinds of love
Hmm.
as like this great comic adaptation, and it's just this awesome Netflix series, all this hype, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, and didn't they release like an episode or two like recently or something like that? They were like
No, the
adding.
whole season came out, I think.
I could have sworn I saw something that said like a new episode was put on there. So I don't
Hmm,
know. I since I had
maybe
watched it, I didn't really pay too much attention
maybe
to
I
it.
need to go back and look and see. But my hot take is that it wasn't that good.
Mm,
I had a hard time sticking with it.
yeah.
Like, and it wasn't for all of the reasons that other people are. I'm seeing other people hating on it, because like a lot of people are hating on like the The wokeness of it. There's a lot of like back and forth
Mm-hmm.
of like a lot of political current day movement stuff, but I didn't mind any of that. I didn't think that it was over the top, and apparently the comic is very much the same of that. Like it
Yeah.
was very true to the comic. I just didn't like it.
Mm.
I just was not invested in it. The
Yeah.
characters weren't that interesting. The the
Mm-hmm.
main the main character was like a skinnier Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. I watched like the first 10 minutes of it. Like one time I was like, I'm going to start this before I go to bed to kind of pique my interest. And so that way the next day I get up and start
Mm-hmm.
watching it. I started watching something else the next day, and it's a show that I'm excited to talk about soon because it's it's one of my favorite things that I've seen in a long time. So
Recently, yeah.
yeah, I mean like it's incredible. It was mind-blowing. Um so fantastic. But we'll
Hmm.
get into that later.
I'm
I'm
excited
gonna
here.
let you finish.
I'm excited to hear about that. But yeah, I didn't think the Sandman was good at all. I know that that's not the popular opinion. A lot of people are just head over heels about it.
Hmm.
Not me. I did not think it was good. I did not think it was interesting. I thought that in some parts it was just kind of weird. A lot of people had a problem with the fact that they couldn't use John Constantine, so they used Johanna Constantine, and they turned the character into a girl. I didn't have a problem with that. I had a problem with the fact that she just wasn't as cool as John Constantine.
Yeah.
Um, and nothing to do with the fact that they switched the name or the gender or any of that. I just didn't think that the character was interesting. I don't know. Anyways, that's my take on the Sandman. Uh, not
Yeah.
impressed.
That's a bummer. Well, I have a couple of things for my fans of
Okay.
me that
Yeah.
are coming out soon that
Sure.
my fans would care about.
I'm sure.
Um, one of them is August 24th, so Wednesday night. The Welcome to Wrexham show
Oh,
comes out
sure.
on FX.
Mm-hmm.
This is about Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney
Mm-hmm.
have bought a Welsh soccer team, and this is going to be kind of the behind the scenes docu series on them and that. You of course know my love for soccer, so like
Sure.
I am more excited about this show than I was for Game of Thrones. Like
Yeah.
like
Dang.
I really like this kind of stuff a lot, and I love Rob McElhenney from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia,
Sure.
from Mythic Quest, and all that kind of stuff. I listen to the It's
Mythic
Always Sunny,
Quest.
yeah, the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia podcast. So like I have been following these guys. I mean, It's Always Sunny is on like what, season 15. So
Something like that. Yeah.
half of my
15 or
life I've
16.
been following him and paying attention to that. And then of
Sure.
course Ryan Reynolds. Can you find a cooler person in this universe? You know that it's like, so those two teaming up, and then it's revolving around soccer. I'm super pumped for this thing.
Yeah.
So that's August 24th.
Mhm.
I think that one's going to be on Hulu. Not sure if they're doing like a release date time,
Sure.
release
Yeah. I
time or
mean,
something.
if you don't watch it like live, you mean?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm not sure how they're doing all that, so I'll be checking that tomorrow.
Cool.
Then I am a big fan of C on Apple
Mm.
TV, the Jason
Sure.
Momoa show.
Sure.
So
Sure. Sure.
season 3 of that comes out on the 26th, which is what, Friday this week?
26th. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super pumped about that. That show has been really fun, and I burned through the second season so fast, and so
Mm.
finally here's the new season. So it's like been a year and a half wait for that. So I am very excited for that coming up. So those are my two big coming soon, or
Cool.
this week.
Cool.
Mhm.
So, House of the Dragon.
Yep.
Finally, after the long-awaited anticipation,
Mhm.
we have the prequel series that they were so kind enough to, at the beginning of the very first episode of this new show, um, let us know exactly the time frame, which was very
Mhm.
cool. 172 years before the death of the Mad King.
Mhm.
So you kind of have an exact timeline of
Yeah.
what's going on. Very cool. obviously the ending of Game of Thrones highly controversial. The last season kind of,
Not
very,
controversial. It sucked balls.
well,
Everybody agrees.
yeah,
The
no,
last season.
I don't know that everybody agrees.
Find me a person that liked the last season, and I'll
I
show
like
you
I like the last season.
someone's dumb. I'm not doing a podcast with you anymore. No, you don't.
Yes, I
No, you
did.
did. No,
Yes, I did.
there were cool things about it, but
Yes.
you cannot say that it was a good season, or especially
Okay.
a
All
good
right. All right.
final season, a good wrap up of an entire story of what 9 years of our life. And they're like, I'm sorry that you spent 9 years of your life on this. We don't give a shit. We're going to go do another movie. So here's
Yeah.
the scraps left over. No,
Yeah.
that was disrespectful, and I will not tolerate it.
I don't disagree with those points. However,
Mhm.
I don't think it was as nearly as bad as what people make it out to be.
No, I mean,
I think,
I remember us watching it, in our separate homes and all that kind
yeah,
of stuff, being states away, and we were taking screenshots and sending them to each other because there was some of the most beautiful cinematography done in that kind
yeah,
of thing.
dude.
There was some
Whew.
amazing fight scenes in that. There were some pieces of the storyline that were wrapped up nicely.
Yeah,
But then there were other things that they just slapped
yeah,
us in the face,
sure.
and it was like I felt betrayed and heartbroken that it upset me.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, again, I feel you.
mhm,
I think that that's the general consensus, and in true Game of Thrones fashion,
mhm,
uh, they did the same thing with episode 1 of the prequel, where they made us wait 2 years, 3 years for
mhm.
it to come out, and then on launch day, half of the world couldn't watch it because they didn't load enough
Yeah.
or prepare enough bandwidth for people to stream the episode. So,
Mhm. I
me,
know you had
very,
problems with it. I didn't have problems with it, but I watched it later that night, so maybe it wasn't like
yeah,
a
I
popular
waited.
time. I don't
I
know.
waited with the app open until 9. I refreshed the app. It popped up. I clicked on it. It crashed every time it launched for a half an hour straight in the
Uh,
same place over and
yeah.
over and over again. I was so agitated by the half hour. I stopped. I just turned it off. I didn't watch it Sunday night. I watched it Monday night,
Mhm.
and by that time, obviously it worked. It was fine. I
Yeah.
just That's the kind of stuff that just grinds my gears, man.
I know, I saw your tweets.
I just I here's my thing, and it sounds, obviously it's very I realize how um you know I guess it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, so it sounds very silver spoon of me,
Mhm.
but when you pay for a service, you expect it to work, right? So
Sometimes.
obviously, like, your electricity can go out, it's a bummer, it
Yeah.
comes back on. Your internet can go out, it's a bummer, it comes back on. But streaming services in general have us all by the balls,
Oh, yeah.
because everything we want to like watch and take in is split up between a dozen different streaming services. When
Yeah.
we were kids, our parents were like, I'm not paying for cable, it's way too expensive to have all these
Oh,
TV
God.
channels.
My
And
kid
so,
said
like,
it's so good.
and then eventually, grow up and you're like, oh yeah, cable is too expensive. All these shows, I barely watch anything. I'll just get
Mhm.
Netflix. Okay, cool. Get Netflix. It started out like $6.99. Now it's $19.99. It's $20 or whatever it is a
Yeah.
month, right? And so that's 20. And then you're like, oh, Disney Plus, that was this. Now it's going to be 10.
Well, of
Hulu,
course, then
that was 7.
I did the bundle, so I got the
Sure.
Disney Plus with the Hulu,
All
with
of
the
this,
ESPN Plus.
all of your streaming stuff that you
Oh,
have,
Amazon Prime.
you're paying more
Yeah.
for all of these streaming channels than you would for cable, and you were
Yeah.
complaining about how, anyways. So my gripe is that you pay for this. It's a on demand video streaming service, right?
Mhm.
You have a show that had a record number of viewers the entire last like 3 seasons when it
Yeah.
was live on TV, right? It's been anticipated for 3 years this prequel is coming out.
Mhm.
You know how many people are going to be streaming this show. You know how many
Yeah.
people have the service. You know how many people are sharing your app. The fact that you are a billion-dollar company
Mhm.
and you can't prepare for one of the largest and most popular TV shows of all time to have a prequel show come out. They said that there was over 10 million people that streamed it.
Yeah.
Well, there was another 10 million that couldn't stream it
Yeah.
because the app crashed.
I'm glad I
And
waited till 10 o'clock and not 9 o'clock to watch it.
it's
'Cause
unbelievable.
I didn't have a
Anyways.
single issue.
Anyways, that's
Yeah.
that's my soapbox on it. I think it's ridiculous that
Mhm.
you pay for something that's on demand and then it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
My
So
biggest pet peeve is things that don't work. But anyways,
yeah, no, I understand.
let's get into the actual
Yeah,
the
so
actual
so what I'm
episodes.
wondering, do you want me to go ahead and shit on it, and then you can kind of rebuttal what I'm going to say, or do you want to give it glowing reviews and then I can come behind you and shit on it? How do you feel about doing this?
So here I have
'Cause I have a
great
few
things.
gripes.
I have some great things to say about it. I have a
Mhm.
few complaints.
Hit me with it.
Let's do because I just hit HBO with like some scathing
Mhm.
criticism. Let's start with some good things, right?
Okay.
And I'll kind of go through mine, and then you can go through yours, and then we'll kind of go back and forth. So,
Got it.
first things first, the Game of Thrones universe
Mhm.
is fantastic.
Yeah,
George
it
R. R.
really
Martin
is.
just did an absolutely amazing job. From the characters to the world to the lore to the families to the, I mean, you really, whenever they start talking about the different families and the houses and
Mhm.
you see the different older leaders of the houses and they
The
start
flags
popping
and you
out,
hear the
yeah,
names, the
man.
Baratheons,
And
the
then for
Starks. Yeah.
the very split second, the music you hear at the very beginning, they didn't
Mhm.
overdo it, but they had the dun 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 dun, dun in the
Yeah.
background of whenever she was talking, right? She's talking about
Mhm.
like the lead up, and they just had it just for a split second. The guy that does the music is just an
Yeah.
absolute madman. He's great. Um, so the universe, the music, it's all super good. Uh,
Mhm.
I really can't like say enough good about that.
Yeah.
The brutalness of it, I missed how brutal they are. Like there
Mhm.
was no holds barred in this
Yeah.
first episode. I mean, none. There's people's arms getting chopped off. There's guys' nuts getting
They
chopped
had
off.
a lot of expectation to live up to, though. I mean, they
But
are
like,
known
but
for
they
insanity.
went full. And obviously, spoiler alert: if you haven't seen this, the first episode, and you're
Then
planning on it,
pause this, go
yes,
watch it, and then come back because we're gonna
yeah,
spoil it. I'm not keeping
yeah,
my mouth shut.
right. We're this whole. I mean, and we're going to probably be doing this through most of the season. But
Oh, yeah.
they had a red wedding level event in the
Mhm.
first episode. How are you gonna?
Mm.
How are you gonna go right to a lady elbow deep in a woman's belly pulling a baby out
Yeah.
in the first episode? How are you gonna do that? I mean,
I think it's too soon.
insane.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep my gripes down for right now.
I was like the whole time we're watching it, I'm like, wow, like they are not holding anything back here. This is
Mhm.
insane. Um, aside from that,
Some of the
again, I
night fight scenes, some face smashing, like you were saying, arms cutting off, that
yeah,
was some brutal,
brutal,
crazy stuff.
brutal,
That
and
worked well.
on top of I know I already mentioned like the lore and the like the worlds, but like initially introducing characters that
Mm.
you are immediately like, what's this person's deal?
Mhm.
Oh, this person's interesting. What do they do? Like whenever they're sitting around the council, I when the when Viserys's hand, Lord Hightower was
Mhm.
talking, I swore that he was a Lannister. He talked like a Lannister. He acted like a Lannister, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm so and so Hightower," and I was like, "What?"
Hmm.
Now, obviously, didn't make sense, but I just the way that he talked, I was like, "Oh, this person has to be like a long lost Tyrion great grandfather." Like he
Yeah.
just, or not Tyrion, Tywin. Like
Mhm.
talked just like him and was the hand of the king. But anyways, just the characters are very, very interesting. The guy with the dreadlocks, I can't remember his name now. At the end of
Mm-hmm.
the table, like very stark contrast character that we really haven't seen before,
Mm-hmm.
especially in King's Landing. But then once again, going towards the end, the way that they just like rope you in with the nostalgia
Mm-hmm.
of the world, right?
Yeah.
With the Rhaenyra's saying Dracarys and having
Mm-hmm.
her dragon burn her mom and brother. Just you're just like, man, I remember watching Game of Thrones and being like, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
and so you got kind of
Yeah.
get that feeling. Uh, what do you have positives
Um,
besides what I said?
the a lot of what you said, the world is that's the thing that I was looking forward to the most of all of
Yeah.
this, because it's like I know that there's going to be all these new characters that I don't know and am excited to learn about, and so the whole world of Game of Thrones is I love it. I love diving deep into it
Hmm.
and just going down the spider web of these different houses and places where they're from and all that kind of stuff. Being able to see, like we said, the Baratheons and the Starks and
Hmm.
seeing the flags and them pledging loyalty. It's like, oh, there's those guys,
Hmm.
and we knew they
Yeah.
were going to be in it, and it was a very easy like tease for us, but I still like I ate that stuff up.
Sure.
um I feel like they've done good with the characters. Like in a lot of shows, when someone is supposed to be like a blonde type person or whatever,
Hmm.
um there's always so many bad wigs or like bad makeup jobs or whatever. Like think about like a lot of like vampire movies or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever, where they're like, oh, this person has to have white or silver hair, and it's like they
Hmm.
put it on someone and it just doesn't fit.
Doesn't work. Yeah.
The main girl, uh
Hmm.
she has a very unique look to her. Like
She
it's
looks like the kid from oh man, what's that movie where the no Gertz? That kid.
the kid with the
You guys are
eyebrows.
getting paid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the kid
yeah,
with the
that
eyebrows.
kid.
Yeah,
She looks like him. She looks
yeah, but
like a girl version of him.
it's very she has a very unique face, and I
Yeah,
think it fits very well with like, because they're supposed to stand out. They're supposed
sure.
to look different, but at the same time they're all still just normal humans and stuff. So
Yeah,
it's like they did a really good job with casting her. I think the uncle Damon,
Damon. Yeah, the
I'm
guy,
still of course
Doctor
learning
Who.
names and stuff. Um
He was Doctor Who for a while.
Yeah, I think he looked fantastic in that role. Like, so there are different ones like that that I think they did a really good job with, because I'm super picky about that. If they just threw
Hmm.
like a Tom Cruise guy in there and put a blonde wig on him, it's just like that
Yeah,
doesn't fit. It doesn't
right.
seem natural. Like I could tell that's an actor in a wig.
Sure.
But if they get someone who's it's almost like your face characteristics have to match that weird style that they were
Sure.
trying to pull off there. And I think that they did a really good job with that. So
Yeah.
those kind of things I enjoyed.
Okay.
The whole jousting stuff was, yeah, that was fun. It was brutal. Like
Yeah.
I could
I
watch
As a
jousting
side
and think
note,
all
I
day long.
hate jousting like as a sport. I think that it's got to be one of the stupidest.
It's
Like,
crazy. It's
like
crazy.
even for knights, if I was a knight, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. I'm gonna ride my horse at another guy with a pole, and he has the same pole. Like,
100 miles an hour and
yeah,
just slam into each other.
my best case scenario, we hit each other. Like
No,
worst case
best case
scenario,
scenario, I would beat the crap out of this guy. He goes flying off
no,
his horse, and it may jar my arm a little bit, but yeah.
but like my point
Best
is
case
like
scenario is not me getting hit.
no. And what I'm saying is your best case scenario is like you both knock into each other and like you both fall off, or like maybe he falls off and you don't, or whatever. But
Mm.
you're coming at each other with like the same. Aren't the lances the same length? Or wouldn't it be cheating if
Yeah.
one was longer? So
No,
they're the
this should be
same
the same
length.
length.
So they're the same length. So they're going at each other at the same length lance. Like in reality, you should be hitting each other every time, right?
Well,
Like,
I think it has to do with like the bouncing of the horse, the weight of the lance, the way that you either block or deflect his lance. Those kind of things
Yeah.
that I think is what separates the good from
Yeah.
the bad. Like,
I
I'm sure if
just
I hopped on a horse now and you gave me a lance, I probably would not hit a
well,
person first
sure,
try.
but we're talking about knights, right? Like versus each other. My
Yeah,
point
but I'm sure
is
there's
like
good knights and shitty knights.
it just seems like the whole thing's a sham. Like some of the
Mm.
knights, like for instance, Damon's armor was fantastic.
Oh, it looks
Like it
super
was
cool.
it
Like, he
was
had total
amazing.
epics compared to everybody's, like,
Yeah. The other
comments.
other guys are wearing like cheese graters on their face.
Except
Like
I was really hoping, like, I liked all of his armor, except I wish his helmet had, like, the piece that actually slid down over his
oh
face
sure.
and was like a big ass dragon that way. Because it
Yeah.
just being up on his forehead, it was cool. But then when everyone else is pulling their mask down to go joust, I was like, oh, if he was able to pull that down and there was like a
Yeah.
really cool dragon face right there, I was like, oh, that would have been so dope. So,
I
but
think
other than that, his
yeah.
armor, his horse's armor was, they did a good
Yeah.
job. That
His
was pretty
horse
sick.
had dragon armor. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that like they wanted to show his face, obviously, because like your main
Yeah.
characters are gonna want to show their faces. But just his armor compared to everybody else's, I'm like, no
Yeah.
wonder you're getting knocked off your horse. You can't see anything. Like they're wearing like basically a bucket over their head with holes in it.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't make sense. But the sport itself doesn't make sense. I'm like most of the time they'd get knocked off and then they just go beat each other to death with whatever weapons they had. It's
Mhm.
like, why do you just start there? I don't get it.
'Cause it's fun. I
Anyways,
wanna see people charging on the horse.
so
I like
stupid.
jousting, I'll just say that. I'm a fan of jousting. I don't want us to bring it back because I think it's terrible for the
Horses.
horses and stuff
Yeah.
like that, but if we did, like, where you got on my shoulders and I ran with you, I'd be all down for watching that kind of
Human
thing.
jousting.
Human
Oh my
jousting,
god.
yeah, just don't put horses in danger, but, I mean, you
I'm
can
pretty
have a
sure they
really
do that in like the gladiator games with the
yeah, maybe
foam.
so. I mean, you just need someone like the Mountain who's 6'7" and 350 pounds to carry someone who's a lot smaller, and
Yeah,
he
he
could
would
probably run
throw you.
so fast.
He would throw you at the other person
Yes,
instead of having
there
a
we go.
lance.
And I wouldn't feel bad about that whatsoever because, people can make the choice to run at each other with sharp
Yeah,
sticks, but
yeah,
horses cannot, and so it makes me feel bad sometimes.
I agree.
But it's just a show, so I didn't feel bad. No
So
animals were harmed in the making of that show.
that's maybe true. What else?
I think that was about it.
That's your positives. All right. So
Mhm,
my number one negative takeaway from the show
mhm.
was that 172 years prior to the Mad King falling and burning the city down, there have been no advancements in society.
Okay.
There's not a single
King's Landing still looked the same as what it did. Yeah,
identical. And
yeah.
actually, they probably like it probably got worse. It seems like things got worse in 200 years,
Mhm.
not better. Like the only one good thing that I noticed that they didn't have in like current Game of Thrones timeline was like, did you notice around the Iron Throne all of the swords that were sticking up out of the ground?
Yes, yes.
So that's not there in
Mhm.
the time of
Yeah, someone cleaned it up.
Cersei. Yeah. So like I guess that's an advancement. Like you can't kill yourself on more swords, just the ones that are on the throne. I don't know,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
like everything else was like architecture wise,
yeah.
exactly the same. They even showed the window that Joffrey jumps out of. Same
Mhm.
same window, same thing, same view, same architecture. You're telling me that like
Not Joffrey, it was the
not
brother.
Joffrey, yeah, Tommen. Sorry, was it?
Tommen, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the window that Tommen jumped out of. So um you're telling me that in 200 years they had already reached peak archaeology, not archaeology, architecture, and
Mhm.
peak engineering, and that was just it.
I I didn't think about it while watching it, but in my mind, um, I think where the story is going and where we were kinda at in, uh, the normal standard day Game of Thrones thing, I think, we know that there was you know, the, like, the fall of some groups. There was the Mad King. There was like some things that it would make sense if the whole city kind of went into a depression and things weren't getting better. They were actually getting worse over time because everyone kept fucking things up. And then you have like the Baratheons take over, and maybe he's just so concerned with himself that he's not really building the city. I mean, we know what kind of person Cersei was and Jamie.
Yeah, but
But
that's
like,
200 years later.
yeah,
It's very obvious that like the people like the Maesters, right? The Maesters
mhm,
in that were like, oh, we've heard of this medicine, that medicine, this teaching, that
mhm,
teaching. They're the ones that are like doing studying and writing history,
mhm.
and they're advancing medicine and advancing technology.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that in 200 years they're still just writing things down in scrolls, and like that's just that.
Yeah, I can see your point there. That
I think that in order for it to really feel like it's 200 years prior,
mhm,
some things would have to be different.
yeah,
Like whether it's just like the way they dressed was a little different, the armor that they wore was a little different, maybe
mhm,
like the weaponry, the architecture, just
yeah,
something, but like it's the same universe that just seems to have reached its peak technological potential, and
yeah,
that's just that.
yeah. That until something big comes along, they're gonna be stuck in the Bronze Ages and
Yeah,
whatnot. Yeah, I can see that.
that's
To
my gripe.
me, that takes a little bit more thinking. At least for me, it didn't pop into my head initially.
Mhm.
Like when you first said it, I was like, "Oh yeah, that actually, yeah, I could see that." That didn't kind of make sense with them
Yeah.
being so far apart to have like everything look exactly the same as what it did in the original episodes. So, yeah, I feel you there.
What else?
What else? What
What
that
else did you not like?
that I haven't? Oh, okay. I'm gonna take a deep breath on this one. No,
Okay, go ahead.
I my biggest kind of things with it are um like you said, it had a red wedding type gore scene to it. When we're watching season 1 episode 1 of Game of Thrones, um when I'd say like the big crazy part in that was, Ned getting his head chopped off.
That was until like episode 8.
Was it that far down? I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't seen episode 1 in
It
a
was
while.
like
So,
it was
but
episode like 6 to 8 or something like that. I can't 6, 7 or 8
yeah.
in season 1.
Was episode 1 when um when the
Bran
Stark boy
gets
gets pushed out the window?
yeah, I'm pretty sure
Okay.
Bran gets pushed out of the window at the very end of episode 1, I
Yeah.
think. It's either
Um
episode 1 or 2.
yeah, I get those confused. But why I'm bringing that up is I felt like, Game of Thrones, they have a reputation of being crazy and brutal and stuff. I
Mhm.
think that worked great with the jousting scene and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I think they pulled it too soon with the scene with the wife and the mother because we hadn't had a chance to really care for her. Where it's like, to me, I felt no differently between her and a maid and the person sitting next to somebody at a table. Like,
Sure.
there was no time to build up any kind of connection to this person, which I feel like Game of Thrones has done a good job with in the past. That it's like,
Mhm.
we're gonna make you fall in love with this person and then fuck them, and then we're
Right.
gonna make you fall in love with this person and then we're gonna do this, and it's like,
Yeah.
but that they just go, we just did this, and it's like, and you should love her because she's the mom, she's the wife, and it's like, well, you
Mhm.
can't just put a title on them and make me care about them. Like, there needed to be, I felt like if maybe that would have happened in episode 2 or even episode 3, once we got to know her a little bit more and saw how she was as a mom and as a wife. I mean, our only time with her was her sitting down on the couch,
In
like,
labor,
yeah.
basically.
So I mean, she was already deep into labor, and then it's just like, okay, we got to do this. And so, like, while that scene was like Eli Roth brutal style,
Mhm.
I had no emotional connection to that for me to go like, "Oh my god!" Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't an oh my god, it was more like, "Ugh,
Ugh.
this is kind of gross."
Yeah.
Like, and that's not normally the kind of feelings that Game of Thrones gives me. It gives me an oh my god, I was not expecting that.
Sure.
Like, I cared about that person, or that hit me out of the like. I felt like that scene, you saw it coming a mile away, and then when it did
Mhm.
come, it was just like, how gory are they going to get with this? Which, I mean, I love gore just as much as the next guy, so I can't complain about that too much. But it's uh, to me that it didn't hit me in a good way. Where
I agree with you. That pulling a punch like that was definitely, I think it was shocking because I didn't expect them to go that hard that early. But I will say that in the writing defense, I don't think we were supposed to care about the mother at all. I don't think that was
mm,
I don't think that was like a Catelyn Stark kind of like, oh, I can't believe they just killed, like Lady Stark. This was more of like a uh almost like an out the gate, like this is how the show is going to go.
mm-hmm,
It's going to be brutal. It's going to be just like, what you expect,
yeah,
but more so to move the plot along to the king having to tell Rhaenyra that she was going to be queen,
mm-hmm,
because like that is like ultimately going to be the show's plot point,
yeah, and
right?
I get that as well. That it's like we want to get to this point. I like to have my emotions really mess with when I watch a show. I like to have lots of ups and downs. I like to be sucked in. I like to fall in love with character. And I mean
Yeah,
there's so many examples out there, especially now. I mean, there are some awesome shows out there that they can introduce a character and you can fall in love with it in 2 minutes and be
sure.
like, I really, really like this person, and then kill them off and you're devastated. Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't really take that much time. It just, a little bit of, some kindness from a person, or, you know, something to go like, oh, this is a good person. And it just, to me, I felt like it was kind of a missed opportunity where it's like,
mm.
this is a pretty big scene, I would say, in there. And I watched it like they were trying to have fun being extra gory and not
Yeah,
like there was no emotion on my face while it was happening. It was more just kind of like
yeah. Oh,
that's kind of
gross.
weird. And
Yeah,
so I don't know, like that to me, especially with, like I said, their reputation of making you fall in love and then hurting you. They did so good with that in the previous things that I feel like it was just a missed opportunity there.
gotcha.
Um, the other thing is, and I'm saying all of this with the fact that I have a lot of high hopes for this show.
Sure.
I have great expectations for it. Um, so I'm not shitting on this thing hard now and saying like I'm not watching it or anything like that. It was still good. I still enjoyed it. I will still be watching the next one. There were
Sure.
just certain things to me that, and it may have been that I went in with too high expectations for it.
Maybe.
Um, but like in all the things that I've watched in my entire life, Game of Thrones has some of my favorite characters ever made in an 80s show.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, if you go through the original thing and look at some of the amazing characters, I mean, not
Mhm.
just like great ones. I'm talking about amazing, mind blowing
Yeah,
characters that
yeah,
they
yeah.
had. There were so many. I mean, Tyrion Lannister, Tormund Giantsbane, the Hound, the
Right.
Mountain, Cersei, Joffrey. Like there were so many that were just insane, crazy characters that I wanted to know more. I wanted to follow Jon Snow. Like I could sit here. I could probably name 15 characters that were absolutely fun, and I liked seeing them on the screen, and I wanted
Sure.
to know what happened to them. I could say after this first episode, I didn't have one. I didn't have a single person that I was like, "Oh, I really want to know more about them." I'd
Hmm.
say the closest with that was Damon, the brother, but
Mhm.
even him, I felt like when we saw someone do something evil in the original one, like some of the shit Joffrey pulled, you were like, holy shit,
Yeah.
that was fucking dark. Or Ramsey. Ramsey blew my expectations every time he did something, because it was like I was like expecting you to do something dark and you went beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I feel like Damon was like, okay, we want to have him kind of be a bad guy and we want him to be dark. But it was like, it seemed like he was doing stuff just to be cool and dark himself, to give off that persona rather than being like a truly evil person. So it's like, I kind of was like, I would like to know a little bit more about you, but not in the way that I felt in the past. So like I said, I have high hopes for this because I have seen Game of Thrones make some ridiculously amazing characters that I could not get enough of, and I wanted them on the screen more and more and more and more. That I know that they had the potential to do that. In the first episode, like I said, there wasn't a single person that if they weren't in episode 2, I would not give a shit. If they were just like, this person's not in the show anymore, I would not care at all. Give me a whole new cast of characters like that. We're like, okay, well, we introduced these guys. Now we're going to show you another part of the world. And here's these new guys that we're talking about. It wouldn't affect me in any way.
So I understand where you're coming from. I think that unfortunately we have the hurdle of jumping over an entire 8 seasons worth of content to view one episode in the light of. And again, if you think back to episode 1 of Game of Thrones, I guarantee that after episode 1 of the first season of the original show, you weren't in love with Ned Stark or Jamie, or like, it's just like, oh, okay, who's this person?
Okay, and
Okay.
if I remember correctly, and so like I think it is in episode 1, right, that Jamie is banging Cersei and pushes Bran out the window and all
One or
that kind
two.
of stuff.
It's 1 or 2.
Okay,
I can't remember.
so there, but if that's true, you got a couple of things. I think in that episode you had Tyrion slap Joffrey.
No.
Was that not in that
No.
one?
No.
I thought it was like in like the very early stages.
No, not in
it was
episode
something.
1. But my point is that after one episode, there are several characters that, in my opinion, could go down the road of like, oh, who is this person? Damon, in all mannerisms, the way he talked, even like his enunciation sounded. If you would have closed your eyes and you'd have been like, "Is that Ramsey?" Like, he talked just like Ramsey, and maybe that's purposeful, maybe that's accidental, maybe that's whatever, maybe it is a little bit too on the nose, but I think that it's very tough to view one episode in the light of an entire series and go, well, some of these characters aren't going to live up to some of them. Well,
No,
I
like I
don't
said,
know.
I'm not going into it expecting them not to. Like I said, I have spent 10 years in watching Game of Thrones. Like, I have seen the potential of what these guys can do.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
not like it's a different writer. It's this.
Yeah,
It's a one big book series.
So I mean, I went into it kind of like I was almost excited to go like, all right, who am I going to be excited about this season?
Yeah.
Like who? And so I was kind of looking for that, and I didn't find it. And so I think that a little bit of disappointment is why I'm probably coming off of very harsh right now.
Sure.
Because like it was something that, like I said, I mean, there are so many cool people that it was like, who's my person this season? And I know it's ridiculous.
Yeah, all of those people you did not meet in episode 1, right?
Exactly. I understand. Like Tormund Giantsbane, he was
season
late,
4, 5.
Yeah, it was so deep into it. So like, and then who was it? Pedro Pascal's character.
Yeah, Oberon.
Yeah, like freaking cool. Like there were just so many.
Late in the show.
I understand that was the case, and so and I mean, and you hear me talking, I can't remember what the hell happened in episode 1 of the original thing, and so it's probably a whole bunch of that stuff is jumbled together, and I'm just like, I remember it just having so much things, and this one didn't. So I'm sure it was my expectations and But like I said, I'm a massive Game of Thrones fan. I am definitely going to be watching episode 2.
Mhm.
Probably still waiting till 10 o'clock so I don't get screwed over like other
Like I
nerds that
did.
try to rush
Yeah,
into it,
yeah,
you
exactly.
know. But no, I'm going to be
Sorry
watching it
for my
every week.
excitement.
Yeah, no, it is what it is. So I mean, I don't want to be too harsh on it. I'm just
Sure.
saying my original expectations was I walked away from it a little bit disappointed and sad, but still going, I have high hopes for this because I know what these guys can do. I've
Yeah.
seen their work before, so I'm not going to judge them too harshly. But I did need to get this off my chest. So thank you for allowing me to vent because I was
Sure.
bottling it up. I was like, why am I so angry? Like I wanted to like this, and I walked away not going like, that was awesome. I can't
Yeah,
wait.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
I am excited about how it moves forward.
mm-hmm.
I mean I don't think in any way I was blown away, but I can remember watching the first season of Game of Thrones and being like, what is this? Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think that I like was in love with it like I was by the end of season 8.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on it. I am excited to be able to talk about it weekly or
Oh
whatever
yeah.
bi-weekly. Maybe we save up a couple episodes for one, so we're not just every week talking about it.
Yeah.
But before we end this week's show,
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you a couple questions. So
Hit me with it. Let's go.
um, I'm going to ask you about a movie, and I want you to like first movie that comes to your head, like
Okay.
immediate gut reaction. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm gonna, as I say it, I'm gonna also think of mine. So
Okay.
all right, so and there's just four questions. We're gonna go through these really fast. Worst movie of all time that you've ever seen?
Christmas at the Cranks.
Does that have who's
Dan
in that?
Aykroyd and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Gosh, that is a terrible movie.
It made me
Uh
so angry. I wanted to
yeah,
punch a hole in the wall
yeah,
because
yeah,
they were like, they wanted to like I think it was like the kids were like moving out of the house and they're like, we're gonna go on vacation or take a cruise together. And
yeah.
everybody was like, you're not celebrating Christmas, you're shitty people. And I was like, this is terrible. It's making me so mad. Like I was just angry. So yeah, when someone says what's a bad movie, that one pops into my head because I remember, I mean, it was, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. I was angry seeing red watching that movie.
Yeah.
Like, I hate this.
Yeah. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so mine is, and I'm definitely with you. It's
Mm-hmm.
pretty bad. There are so many, but the first thing that comes to my mind is it's one in particular, but it also leads to an entire genre of movies. So
Okay.
the sci-fi channels like mashup monster movies. So
Mm.
my initial one is the Sharktopus versus Terracuda, where it's a shark octopus and a
I got you.
barracuda
Yeah.
pterodactyl. And
Okay.
they're like mutant animals and like this terrible CGI, and all the actors are like B-list actors,
Yeah.
and it's just made
Fantastic.
directly for sci-fi.
Yeah.
God, they're so bad. Oh my, they're
I
just.
don't know if I've even attempted to watch one of
But
those.
all of them, there's so many. If
Yeah.
you like actually look up that genre,
Oh,
like
I'm
which the
sure.
but
Because
versus whatever,
I used to
like
watch a lot of Sci-Fi Channel. It seemed like there was a new preview for one once a week.
yeah, they're so like I can't. I literally there's just in the Sharktopus one. There's just Sharktopus. Okay, so that's one.
Mhm.
There's Sharktopus versus Terracuda. There's Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf.
Ooh.
Okay,
See,
right,
these
and
sound awesome, though. That's probably what makes you so mad is you're like, "This
yes,
sounds amazing," and then you watch
they're
it, you're like, "This is
terrible.
garbage."
It's so bad.
There's so much potential in that. A whale wolf? Like, there's so much potential in that.
So bad.
Uh,
All right. Okay.
mhm,
So, number 2 question. What
mhm.
is your most watched movie? What
Fight
one
Club.
movie that, yeah?
I've
You've seen
definitely
that
watched that more than
them
anything
already?
else. I
Okay.
know for a fact I have. I used to turn it on every night to go to bed. Like, I would just play it in the background,
Yeah.
and so, like, sometimes I wouldn't fall asleep, and I'd watch it all the way through. Sometimes I'd fall asleep in the middle, but it was, like, for almost a year straight, it was like, "This is what I'm turning on to fall asleep to tonight." So
Sure.
I know I have seen it a ton.
Huh. Interesting. So, I didn't expect I mean, I guess I should have known that.
That's my
Mine
favorite.
mine I literally I don't know which of these five it is.
Okay.
When I thought of this question, I was like, oh my god, there's five. So it's either Jaws
Mm-hmm.
or Jurassic Park,
Mm-hmm.
V for Vendetta,
Mm-hmm.
or The Matrix. I
Yeah,
don't
see, I
know.
would say The Matrix is pretty far up there with me because it's one of those that I could watch at any time and not
Yeah,
um
but
get
see,
tired
that's
of.
just
See, like
it's
things
the
with me,
same
like
with
with
Jaws, though. For me, just
but
the
see,
same
like
with
for
Jaws
me,
and Jurassic
ones
Park.
like Jaws and Jurassic Park and stuff, those are such a journey that like I'd like to almost kind of sit down and have no distraction and kind of
Yeah,
watch them from start to finish, where
yeah,
it's not like to me, it's not a background one as much.
yeah.
But some
It's one of the.
people may
It's one
say
of
that
those.
about Fight Club, but
I used to in college. I used to put The Matrix on
yeah.
before I went to sleep, and I would wake up at like 4 in the morning to the menu music, which was
Mhm.
the lobby scene, like that dance remix.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, but it was like one techno track that would
Yeah.
loop over and over and over again in the menu of the DVD.
Yeah. It should have been
Uh,
the Club to Death song, that
Something
one,
like
because
that.
it's
Yeah,
like a good 9-minute song and it's like a little bit more chill.
yeah, it should have been, but it wasn't. All right,
Mhm.
what's the funniest movie you've ever seen?
Dumb and Dumber.
Yes,
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah, I think
There hasn't been a movie like that
no.
since then that
God,
has
that's
made me
that's
laugh like
probably
that.
up there in the amount of times I've seen that movie.
Yeah,
It's every time it was on, I'd sit down and watch it because every scene was freaking hilarious.
uh,
Everything was so well done. I
yes,
I don't know. It was so good. Jim Carrey, man, like some of the like the old one, Ace Ventura 2, like some of those things, I died at those as a kid.
I
So yeah, Dumb and
I
Dumber is my first pop in my head one.
same first thing I thought of because it's just there's uh, yeah they haven't made they don't make comedies like that anymore.
No, they don't make comedies in general.
Not good ones.
Like
All right. Uh, what's a movie that you wish you could see again for the first time?
I don't know. I would maybe say something like The Matrix,
Hmm.
maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. If it's top of my head would be that other than like Fight Club or something. I've seen
Okay.
Fight Club so many times it's hard to imagine never seeing that. you know. But like Matrix, yeah, that one has such a mind-blowing fun story that it's
Hmm.
like, oh, yeah, I would love to experience that for the first time.
Mine would be the Fellowship of the Ring,
Mm.
or Avengers #1. So
Mm.
both of those movies. Well, I was a lot younger for Fellowship, but
Yeah.
being somebody that read all of the Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, when I
Mhm.
was very very young. Once they decided they were going to make them, and then like the big journey, and it was just like this epic thing that was coming out. When I went to the theater to see that, the absolute awe and just
Mhm.
sheer joy that I can remember, even now, 20 plus years later,
Yeah.
unbelievable. Seeing
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings and hearing the music, and you know,
Oh, yeah, I
the
rewatched all 6
oh
movies, or
man,
I guess the what is it? The 3 and then the
The
3
Hobbit and
Hobbit
then the
ones.
three.
Like, I
Yeah,
watched all of those last year, with Kaysen after we did the books on audio,
okay.
because it was back and forth, a lot driving, and, so we were just listening to the books, and we got through all the books, and it was like, "Alright, let's start watching the movies," and so we went through and, like, you know maybe in like within a month
So
we
good.
went through all the movies and it was fantastic. And so like it was very cool because it was his first time, like yes he listened to them but it was his first time watching it, so I
Seeing it,
kind of
yeah.
got to live vicariously through him
Sure, sure.
experience it for the very first time. So that was very fun.
Yeah.
So I see where you're coming from there for
That
sure.
and then Avengers as well, right? Like seeing
Hmm.
that whole first part of the phase go up to Avengers 1, and seeing Captain America and the Hulk and Thor and Iron Man all in the same movie, and all of those actors like in their individual
Oh,
roles
if
like
they could just erase all of
interacting.
Marvel from my mind and allow me to start back
Man,
at, like, Iron Man 1, like, just going
oh,
all the way through again,
so
yes,
good.
that would be the way to do it, like, holy crap. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
every single year I remember just like, okay, it's going to be this one's coming out, and then this one's
yeah,
coming out, and this one's coming out.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, so it definitely would be
so
one of
fun.
those. The just it way too classic.
Mhm.
Anyways, that's all we have time for this week.
Yep.
So thanks for
Talk too
joining us
much.
on this week's journey through what's out now and what we're watching, and also a couple questions. If you would like to respond in the comments on our TikTok of what your what's the worst movie you've ever seen, or what's the your most watched movie. I'm very curious to see some other points of views
Yeah, but
besides
play along. Do it like first thing that pops into your head. Don't like
yeah,
spend 10 minutes going through
thinking about
all
it.
these different movies because the only way this game works is a fast thing on it.
Yep,
Because you could spend
instant.
time and go like, oh well, this movie's definitely worse. And then you spend 5 more minutes, and
Sure.
you're like, oh, I totally forgot about this movie. That one's worse. No,
Let's
first thing
be
pops into
real.
your head.
Let's be real. The worst movie of all time is definitely not Sharktopus versus Terracuda. Okay,
Yeah.
it's terrible, but it's definitely not the worst movie. I would also like to throw out there that Rubber is definitely worse than both of ours. Are you familiar with Rubber?
It sounds familiar.
Rubber is about a alien psychic tire
Nope.
that
I was
that
thinking a different one. I was
that
thinking of
rolls around
Flubber.
and no, not Flubber. This tire rolls around and uses mind control and
Mm.
makes people kill themselves.
Sounds great. Great premise. I'd invest in it.
It's terrible. Anyways, uh, that's where we're gonna leave it for this week. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Later, taters.